How you doing, everybody? Happy Friday. All right, let's jump right into it. Last week we talked with Sandeep, who otherwise has had 20 different startups, scaled, has done quite expansive work over a long period of time. We're going to go back and take a peer into a different realm of entrepreneurship this week with a company that is still very early stage. I'm talking about less than 5 employees right now. We're also going to have another first, and I'll show you in a minute what that first is going to be. Oh, there's a little bit of a spoil of the surprise peeking out behind the curtain there of that first. I know, how great, right? Our guest today is an entrepreneur in residence at the Michigan State University. It's okay, they have good people up there too. Research Foundation. She pitched at South by Southwest last year. She's won several pitch competitions. Before she got into the startup world, she worked in corporate for many brands that you otherwise shop at and know of. She is a 2013 Michigan alum, LSA. Where's my LSA people out there? Oh, nice, cool. She's the co-founder and COO of a company called Vetr, and she's here with their chief marketing officer today. Please help me welcome Rachel Berkal.
And this is Penny Lane.
Thank you.
Chief Marketing Officer.
Chief Marketing Officer Penny Lane. How many of you have seen Almost Famous, the movie?
Oh.
Before your time. Good movie, though.
It's so good. Kate Hudson. Go watch it.
Kate Hudson. That's what she's named after. Okay, we're going to hop right into it here. Vetr. Vetr isn't where Rachel otherwise started out. This isn't where, when she left Michigan, it kicked off to. You started your career in a little bit of a different journey.
I did.
Let's unpack that for him.
Yeah, so Eric mentioned I graduated in 2013, but 2009, I stomped on this campus telling everyone I was pre-med, took my first bio class, and got like a B or a C, and I was just devastated. And then that took one bad grade to be like, nope, this is not my path. So from there, my dad's an attorney. Felt like he really wanted me to go to law school. We have three siblings in my family. None of us went to law school, but there was a time there where I thought, hey, maybe I'll do that when I graduate. Then I learned about Ross. The lack of research that I did around the majors before I decided to go to college is really shocking.
I suspect some of you can relate to that.
So didn't even know Ross was a thing. My roommate at the time had already applied, like pre-applied. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. So by the time I realized Ross and business school could be a path I wanted to go down, I felt like it was too late. Like if I started that journey now, I would have to graduate a year late, and that would be awful. There's no way I could go 5 years. Hindsight, being in college a 5th year would have been so fun. So eventually, I found my way to the Communication Studies program through LSA. I really loved the approach they took with media, and so that was the route that I took. And I thought, I'll get a really well-rounded liberal arts education, and then I'll figure it out from there. But I knew I wanted to do something in business, I thought, at the time.
How many of you have changed your major already at least once?
Yeah.
How many of you are freshmen? Okay. There's still time. Yeah. You're likely to change as you learn more about the world, you learn more about what you like, what you don't like, what these majors offer, what pathways they put you on, etc. But I think what you're going to find in Rachel's story today, and true for your own journey, is the major you get does not define who you are, what you're going to do, the only path that you have in life. It is merely a foundation to start on. So you started on that foundation with LSA Communications, and then you graduate in 2013, and you decide to go to China?
Yeah, well, pre-graduation, summer before my senior year, I don't remember how I found this internship, but it was somewhere through Michigan. I found an internship that sent me to China for 2 weeks to learn about the global supply chain. And actually before that, I had applied to be a Target intern, or an intern at Target in Minneapolis, and I didn't get it. Super sad. So then I got this other internship. They were like, yeah, it's sourcing. I didn't even know what that meant, but they were like, we're going to send you to China for 2 weeks. I'm like, well, that could be cool. So I went. I learned all about the global supply chain, sourcing, retail.
Have you been to China before? Was there familiarity? Were you just jumping into the unknown?
No, yeah, never been to Asia whatsoever. And they just sent me. They were like, you're all going to live in an apartment together for 2 weeks. It was weird. But it was overall a really good experience. So then, on the heels of that internship, senior year comes. I'm at the career fair, probably Angel Hall or somewhere, and Target's there, and I'm like, hey, it's me, I'm back. Like, I wanna apply, and I told her about my internship, and she had remembered me from applying before. And I told her I went to China, had this experience, and she's like, you would be a great fit for our sourcing business analyst program.
Look, if I can pause you there.
Yeah.
So when you're in China, you know you're going to go learn about supply chains and sourcing. What did that experience entail? What happened there that otherwise was impactful, if anything? Unpack that one.
Yeah, so this company was creating or manufacturing the giveaway items. Like if you were to go to a festival or a concert or something and they had little swag items, they were producing those type of items for big corporations around the country. So I was going into factories to meet with the suppliers, to look at product, to look at the whole production process, to learn about negotiating costs, to tweak. We had a couple exercises where we were designing and developing a product that we wanted to include in something that they were doing for Unilever at the time. And that process of concept to bringing the product to life and actually seeing it come off the production line. And then from there, what happens from there? Then you package it in customs, and taught us about all types of retail math that I was like, whoa, this is a whole industry that is, I know nothing about. So that was, yeah, so global sourcing, and then Target, they have, of course, a lot of own brands. So in big mass retailers, they are usually selling national brand stuff like Nike or Adidas, whatever. And then someone like Target or Meijer, they'll have own brand stuff. So something that is like a New Day or Threshold or and that's stuff that they're designing and manufacturing under their label. So as a sourcing analyst, my role, I was in women's accessories, and so like scarves, handbags, belts. I was working with those suppliers, those factories who were manufacturing goods for Target under their private label.
Exactly what you went to a communications major to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Perfectly.
I took away strong communication skills. I think just a general well-rounded liberal arts education and understanding work ethic and how to organize and get shit done. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I brought into, and building relationships and really showing up as a professional. I was so excited to have a real corporate America girly job and just thrived in that culture. And they had a very strict training program, so it almost felt like college 2.0 going into Target and you had like your class. So our class started in September of 2013, and we were, going through a 10-week training program, and you had mentors and so much hand-holding, like looking back at it, but necessary to really learn the ropes of corporate America and working for a big organization like that. And then I got laid off. So a year and 9 months into my big girl job, they pulled us all into a room, and there were rumblings of layoffs. They had closed Target Canada and pulled us into a room and said, as of today, you no longer work here, and handed us, and I'm 23 years old. I'm not even 23 years old at the time. And getting this letter, getting a severance package, all this weird, this stuff that, like, this doesn't happen to me when I'm brand new in my career. This happens to older people that are, working in industries that are obsolete. Like, how is this happening?
A severance, for anybody who doesn't know, too, is like where you essentially get an amount of money to help you stabilize after getting laid off until you get your next job. But it's not that long, usually.
Right, and at that time, I was lucky because I was still under 25, so I was still on my parents' insurance for healthcare. So overall, I was walked away from there pretty unscathed, where there were people who had families and children who now were on, COBRA, which is an in-between if you don't have a job that provides insurance, and it's really expensive. So from there, I'm laid off, I'm devastated, I'm like having this existential crisis of what I'm going to do with my life. I applied all over the country, and I was convinced that there was nothing left in Minneapolis for me, that I needed to get out, I needed to move on, next chapter. I applied all over the country and only to really big names, like big companies, like Disney. I got an offer at Disney, at Vera Bradley. I applied to Apple. I didn't get that one. Apple, yeah, didn't get that one. And I was sad about not getting Apple. But then eventually, I found Meijer. And Meijer, which weirdly enough was out of all this job searching, was the only job that I just applied on the website. Every other job, I was connected to someone internally from someone in my network who had made that introduction. So odd that Meijer ended up being the perfect fit, but I had just applied on the website. And the whole process took me about 6 to 7 months-ish to find this job. I moved home to Michigan, so Meijer's headquartered in Grand Rapids. When I went there to interview, if you've never been there, the offices are stunning. Like, it really is a beautiful campus. And I was like, okay, Meijer, maybe this is me. And I thought I did all this job searching. When they offered me the job, I negotiated my salary up $25,000 from where I was at Target.
Wait a second. How did you do that?
I was doing so the job that I applied for and that I received was global sourcing manager. At Target, I was an analyst. And on the track that I was on at Target, it would have taken me a long time to get to a level where I was a manager, where I had a bigger book of business, where I had people potentially reporting to me. Meijer is a very flat organization compared to Target. So Target has all these different levels. You're an analyst, then you're a senior analyst, then you're a senior analyst 2, and then you're there's all these layers, whereas Meijer is flat. There's 3 levels, and then you're practically a director or something. So I was doing some analysis, and I'm like, okay, global sourcing manager, what does that mean? I'm looking on Glassdoor, I'm looking at what are competitive salaries, and I'm like, shit, I was making $52K was my starting salary in 2013 at Target. Based on the comps that I found, I'm like, manager, I think I need to be making $75,000, and that's what I told her I was comfortable making, and she was like, okay. And also, at that time, I had a competing offer with Michaels in Dallas, and I almost moved there, and Michaels was willing to give me any amount of money. They were like, how much do you want? Really tell us. And I'm like, do I just throw out a crazy number and go work for them? But I hated it there. I hated the office. It felt so dingy, and so I was like, no, Meijer is where I want to be. And so I ended up taking potentially a lower offer, but still up. I'm like, I made it out okay. $25K from where I was, that felt like a good deal for me. So then I spent the last almost 8 years of my career building my way and taking even different routes throughout my career path at Meijer. Started in global sourcing, went back to Asia several times, was going there 2 to 3 times a year for buying trips. I managed categories from housewares like lawn furniture and solar lighting to seasonal, so Christmas decorations and Halloween decorations, Halloween costumes. And funnily enough, there's only 2 Jewish people who work at Meijer, myself included, and the 2 of us were the Christmas buyers. So it was just kind of funny. But so loved all of those categories, and eventually I became a buyer where I did a lot of those same categories, but in a more direct role where you are the decision maker versus strictly working on the manufacturing, sourcing, and product development side. And my last stop was in cosmetics. So working with more national brands and getting that CPG experience. But
Consumer product goods.
Consumer product goods, yes. So I am there for 8 years, and it's very clear the path to leadership is very clear. Like I said, it's very flat, so there are less roles at the top. And I felt like there was still something tugging at me, that if I worked my whole life and I retired with Meyer on my resume, would I be satisfied with my career? And during that time, as I'm kind of like, do I want to do this? Like, do I want to continue down this path? I met my now fiance.
And if let me do the math here, what, you're like 30 at
Almost
that point?
30,
Almost
yeah.
30?
Almost 30. I met my now fiance, as all modern relationships start, on a dating app. So we met in the height of the pandemic in 2020 on Bumble, and he was already in this entrepreneurial space.
Sid, do you mind hitting that?
Oh yeah. Well, before we, yeah. So I think, just kind of taking a step back, but to highlight on some of those lessons that I learned going from Target to Meyer is to know your worth and to not be afraid to ask what you think you're worth. And my mom's in the audience, and she always told me growing up, you don't get what you don't ask for. And she's recording the whole thing, so
yeah,
we'll have a nice 45-minute video to show the family during dinner next week.
Absolutely.
But so you don't get what you don't ask for, but also knowing, like, do I feel like I'm worth this? And women typically tend to underestimate their abilities and to undersell themselves and to under-negotiate. So any female that I've mentored in my career has been know your worth and truly ask what you are worth. And make sure that you are at least making what your male counterpart is making. And making it more, it should be more transparent. We should know those things so that we can go out and advocate for ourselves and ensure that we are getting what we deserve.
Well, and regardless of your gender, your sex, your background, whatever, I would implore you, upon taking that first job, whatever you're offered, don't just say yes to that. Come back with a counteroffer of something within a reasonable range, knowing that they're going to come back and probably counteroffer you for that in the event they want you that bad. Students often seem like they're a little bit afraid to do that at initial jobs and opportunities, but I've never met somebody who was like, I counteroffered and they completely retracted and said they didn't want to hire me and never talked to me again. That doesn't happen. If they like you enough to make an offer, they're probably liking you enough to otherwise consider paying you a little bit more. So
100% agree. And if someone doesn't negotiate with me when I make them an offer now, I'm kind of like, huh.
Right.
It makes me pause. Like, do you have that fight? Do you have that grit? Like, do you
take that initiative and understand how to advocate?
Yep, advocate. And I also think, but too, doing the work and always, and I think we put up there, being humble and being open to learning, because we don't have it all figured out, but be open to learning, work really hard, and then you can ask for what you're worth.
Yeah. So after the stint in corporate life, at the stint at Meyer, you're like, I'm not feeling this the rest of my life. Do I want to do this the rest of my career? You meet your fiance, and the epiphany moment starts to gel together. Let's talk a little bit about what he brought to your life, what perspective otherwise that opened up.
Yeah, so Sadok, my fiance, he had started two
also known
companies.
as Penny Lane's dad.
What's that?
Penny Lane's dad.
Penny Lane's dad, yes. He had started two companies before we had met. One of them was a veterinary diagnostics lab, which we'll talk more about, but the second was called Ag Help, and it was a job board for agriculture workers. So he had gone through Techstars with that program, or with that company, and so he had already been through the ropes of startup land. And I started to see how his lifestyle was so different from mine, that he had this flexibility, but that he was really excited to wake up every day and to work on this business. And I was waking up every day dreading going into Meyer and sometimes taking breaks from my day to go cry somewhere. And he had to tell me, hey, 500 emails a day is not normal and actually really unhealthy. This workload is unsustainable. So I was feeling really burnt out. I was learning a lot about what he was doing in the startup space, and then we're dating for this is all in 1 month, pretty much. So I got a puppy. I committed to a puppy in 2020, not knowing that I was gonna start dating someone, and I'm like, I don't need a man. I'm gonna raise a puppy, single dog mom, it's gonna be great. Had her for 1 month, and I'm like, he's not her dad. You can't spend the night that much, so she doesn't become too attached to you. She's mine. And 1 month into it, I was like, yep, he's her dad. Do you wanna move in now? So Penny really escalated our relationship pretty quickly, But once we had her, we were pet parents for the first time, and we were starting to experience, of course I had pets growing up, but this was the first time that I was responsible for her care, especially vet care. And so Sadok had the vet lab, and was also working with another startup at that time by providing laboratory diagnostic services for that startup. And even though he had told me about it and I knew about it, I still wasn't like putting two and two together. But then it comes time for her first appointment, and the vet tells me to bring a fecal sample. So I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, we have to bring a fecal sample. He's like, no, we don't. I'm like, what do you mean? They said bring it. And he's like, no, we'll send it to our lab. They're gonna charge you at least $50 to run that fecal test. And then the light bulb went off, and I was like, oh. But they'll accept that? Like, you can run the test and I give the results to them, and then they'll just put that in her record? He's like, yeah. They just want to make sure that she doesn't have any parasites or nothing is going on. So that was for me when the light bulb first started to go off. Like, we're really pet parents are getting the raw end of the deal, and we'll talk more about that, but you're charging me at least $50 for a fecal test. What else is being overcharged for? So then I started really digging into the pricing with Sadok and with Ruby, his sister and co-founder of the lab, and I started realizing like the cost to run some of these diagnostics is like so little compared to what you're being charged at the veterinary office. So that's where light bulbs started to go off for me. And so our first idea, which I quit my job at Meijer, told everybody I had ever met that I was starting this company called Catch DX.
Sid, do you mind hitting that slide? Oh, next one. There.
Catch DX. So the idea was that we were going to send vet techs into people's homes to run diagnostics, and then we were going to give the diagnostic report back to the pet parents to then give to their veterinarian. So that was the idea, and we did this amount of customer discovery to figure that out. We just, with my retail background, understanding, okay, the value of vertical integration, of cost savings, of having this unique resource of a lab that we could do this we could save pet parents so much money. I'm like, it's great, they'll love it. And that's what we did. And we didn't even have a website. And I quit my job, told everybody I ever met that this is what I was doing, and see me, on the NASDAQ one day.
Okay. And then you decided to come up with a company name.
And then we pivoted. Did you want to do the poll?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do the poll. Yeah. All right, students, you know the drill. Sid, I don't know yeah, thank you. All right. Yeah, if you go back to that and click on the QR code so they can scan a little easier. All right, you know the drill. I would think a small amount of you are pet owners, but maybe I'm wrong. But take your stab at the dark there. This is not a graded, you're going to be right on this, but this is graded for your attendance. This is today's attendance grade. Say this again. This is today's attendance grade. So if you are having some poll everywhere issue logging in this moment in time, take that screenshot that you can send to the 407 address. Otherwise, please answer this. I'm going to guess there's 160-ish of you in here today, so we'll say that's about right. Let's see, where are we at? About $500 everyone seems to, well, about half you think. Split with the rest. All right, show of hands, how many people need more time? Okay, give you another 30 seconds here. How many of you own pets, by the way? Like right now, or your parents do, or like you have my campus? Yeah, okay. Cats? All right, now dogs. I won't even go into the others. Who knows? It could be everywhere. I'll give you your.
Probably.
Yeah.
Good girl.
Okay. All right. We'll call it there. All right. School them.
All right. Well, it's kind of a trick question, but in Michigan, the average vet care spending is around $750. But it really depends. So outside of Michigan, it depends on where you're at in the country, but pet care can range from anywhere from $700 to $1,500. That's the average. A lot of times it can be way, way more, especially if you're talking about surgeries and stuff.
So $750, you feel the pain firsthand. You experience this. You realize there's got to be a better way. There feels like a gap in the market here. The profit margins are ridiculous. And now you start to think, okay, what else is going on in this industry? What other factors can I look at? Students, what you need to hear out of this is terms that are being executed that you otherwise are going to be familiar with as we go throughout the course. Market validation, customer discovery, market product fit, etc. What Rachel and the company then started to look and go through is the validation of the opportunity that they otherwise presumed is there.
Yeah, so we knew it's expensive. We were feeling that. But we also knew that the experience itself, taking her to the vet, really sucked. She was terrified. Like we took her one time, and she was like, "Nope, never going there again." And if you feel bad like forcing them into do something that they hate. So then we started like really digging into why is vet care so shitty. And what we uncovered is there's similar to human health care, there is a lot of consolidation going on in the veterinary industry, meaning big corporations like Mars, who is the candy company. Mars is buying up a lot of privately owned clinics, and then two things are happening. It is resulting in a diminishing quality of care for pets and vets, and it's directly driving those costs to pet parents up. And once private equity, I mean, as is the case in any consolidation or anything that private equity like really gets their claws into, is figuring out how to make it more profitable. And often that comes at the expense of humans or consumers, or in this case, pets and vets, and ultimately pet parents. So 30% of general practices are consolidated by these big corporations. 75% of specialty clinics, so like ERs and surgery centers, are consolidated. And they let them keep their original name, so it could have the appearance of being Wolverine Veterinary Clinic and look like a mom and pop shop, but it isn't. So I don't know where we go from here, but so consolidation is like, so that's the root of the problem.
Vet care expense.
And the symptom of the problem is that the cost of vet care is rising at alarming rates. So it is rising at a rate faster than any other category of pet spending. So this is 2021 to 2024. The cost of vet care rose by 30%. And the next closest, or the next category that had the next highest growth rate is food, but still only at 22.5%. Even in just a one-year stack, the cost of vet care, looking at just 2024, vet care is rising at rates faster than any other category, and it's directly because of this consolidation. Mm-hmm. So from there, so like I said, so it's the expense, and then it's also the diminishing quality of care. So pets are experiencing way shorter appointment time. So they get 12 minutes on average for an exam. So that's for vaccines, that's for any diagnostics like blood draws, that's for a nose to tail body exam. It really isn't enough time to treat and diagnose a pet. And that whiplash of customers, so some of these vets are seeing 5 to 6 patients an hour. They're getting to the end of their day and they're like, what even happened today? Like, it's crazy. And that's a huge contributing factor to why so many vets and technicians are experiencing high levels of burnout. And vets in particular, they are the suicide rate, unfortunately, is the highest of any profession, just behind dentists. So it's a real problem. And then when you start talking about the consolidation and the pressure that these big corporations are putting on veterinarians to go faster, cut corners, cut costs, charge more, you're leaving it up to these veterinarians and to these technicians to negotiate vet care costs with their patients. And some of these people can't afford it, but they're like, well, that's the bill, so figure it out.
And when you're thinking about the market scope and size of this and the validation, show of hands, how many of you know somebody who got a pet during the pandemic? You clearly have somebody on stage here, right? We all kind of anecdotally are like, yeah, we know more people are getting pets. We know less people are having kids. Like, that's becoming more of a trend. But the numbers are astounding on that. The amount of money being spent in the pet care industry, which is including the vet care field, is just astronomical. So, AKA, there's a market that's rapidly growing and expanding there to tap into to provide a service for.
Yes, absolutely.
So, leading you to.
So Catch, right? Catch was the name. So I quit my job in April of 2022. And 1 month out of work, so 1 month I'm just like, finally felt like I was able to come up from air. Like the fact that I didn't have 500 emails in my inbox daily was like, wow, this is such a relief. So I felt like I had clarity for the first time in 10 years or more. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is way too much pet parent education. Like the name sucks. We thought it was brilliant to begin with. The name sucks. It doesn't say anything about vet or pet. How are they going to know that this is a vet company? So we went back to the drawing boards, literally. Sadok and I had a whiteboard in our living room, and we're brainstorming names. And eventually, we come up with Vetr Health, and we're like, and still, like, we're not totally sure how the business is going to take shape, but we're like, we like the name Vetr. We're going to go with that. Okay. So then we're like, too much pet parent education. Pet parents know I need to take my pet to the vet. Sometimes they only take them when they're sick. You should be taking them every year. So they know they need to go. But they don't know what they're going to get when they go there. They don't know what type of tests they're running. They don't know. They couldn't even list you vaccines that they're getting, maybe besides rabies. So they just don't know. So that's why we're like, pet parents don't know what they need. How are we going to sell them a service to give them these results of stuff they don't even know they need? That's when we reached out to the only veterinarian that I knew at the time, who was a colleague of mine from Michigan. And randomly, we were in sign language together as a foreign language, which is weird because there's only like 30 kids in the whole program in the whole school. So Brad, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I know we haven't talked in 10 years, but we have this idea. Do you think vets would want to do in-home care? And immediately he's like, yes, hands down, yes. Not only would it be better for the pets, but it would also be better for the veterinarians he was super burnt out at that time. For veterinarians who are burnt out and who want to just slow down and provide care away from the craziness and the stress found in clinic. So once we had Brad's buy-in and he was on board, we're like, okay, we've got a veterinarian, we had our technician already, we're ready to hit the ground running. So Vetr was the name. We had a friend of ours design the logo, which sidebar, someone already knocked it off and is trying to oppose our trademark. So legal things are important in the beginning. So Vetr Health is where we're at.
And then, Sid, you hit that forward. Okay, so you've got your digital platform.
Yeah. So what is Vetr? Vetr is an in-home, membership-based veterinary care service that provides all of the wellness care a pet would need annually. So our memberships include the in-home visits, their vaccines and testing, and unlimited telehealth, all powered through our digital platform. And we offer it all for $49.99 a month.
Okay, so why did you have to go for a subscription model?
We felt like it was easier for pet parents and more digestible for pet parents to pay for care monthly, knowing that they could budget for that. Because the sticker shock, or the amount, when you go into the vet and you walk out of there with a $400 bill, you're like, oh my God, like what? Like, I hate this. But if we felt like if we could package it as a membership where we could add more value to what they were getting and have that continuum of care, so they felt like it wasn't just this transactional one-time thing. It was like, hey, you're a member, like you're part of this community, and your vet is right here in your back pocket with our telehealth. So anytime you need something throughout the year, we got you. And so it was important to us that we were able to give someone an offering that had high value, but that was also at a really good price. We'll still do a single visit. So if someone doesn't want to do the membership, we're not going to turn them away, and we'll do a one-time visit. But the best value and what we prefer, and our main bread and butter, is the membership or our plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then.
So we're offering a better value. So like I said, pets are more comfortable in their own home. We've heard of pets who would be on, crazy amounts of medication to calm down, and we're going into the home with zero medication on board, and they do amazing, and we're able to get everything done. Like big warnings on these records saying, don't approach pet in, so like bite warnings and stuff. And we go into their home and they're like, hey, you've got treats? Like, love it here. Yeah, come on in. So
Okay.
it's definitely better for them, better for the pets. And we can go back to the market size if you want. So there's a ton of money in the pet space. So $147 billion pet parents spend, and that's on all the things. So food, supplies, vet care. That doesn't include all of the tech and stuff that's going on. I've seen some numbers of this market of total pets being north of $300 billion. But based on what I had, pet parents spend around 30% of their spending is on vet care. And they're continuing to spend more and more year over year. So like 16% growth for some of these pet parents year over year that they're spending on their pets. And it's true, like Penny is our first kid. And I treat her as if I gave birth to her. So I care about her wellness and her care. And a lot of pet parents feel that way too right now.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. There's a lot I want to try to run through, but let's take them through the milestones real quick. I think what I really want them to understand is the notion of the friends and family fundraising that you did and what that means to otherwise approach people as angel investors. Remember, we talked about that term in the first week. How did you otherwise decide to go for the angel investor route? And then when you did decide that, what are those conversations like? And so remember, an angel investor is somebody who is helping fund what it is you're trying to do, typically out of an interest and a belief in it, but then also a bit of a charitable aspect where they want to support you. They're not doing it for the same reason like a venture capitalist is doing it to see a 20x return within the next 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah, so we established the business in 2022, pilot group in 2023, and during 2023, we raised a friends and family round, and the goal for us was to hold off as long as we can for hopefully maybe forever to not raise venture capital. I think with friends and family, of course, the terms are friendlier. You're able to often raise on a safe, which is, I'm sure, a topic maybe you guys will go into.
No, you can explain. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so a safe, meaning that it's you basically get to set the terms. So it's not it's different from a convertible note or
Institutional investment.
So we're able to set the terms, and usually in those early rounds, they're friendlier for the founders. And when you raise venture capital, the clock starts. So you're all of a sudden on this timeline of, I need to see 300% growth in this amount of time or you're dead. And they often want to pass that buck. So the goal is you raise $1 million so that you can grow, then your valuation goes up so you can raise more money to then grow, so that they can pass it on so everyone they just pass you on and pass you on. And if you don't grow as fast and as furious as they want you to, then you're screwed.
And typically, when you are getting venture capital money, they want to have what's called a board seat or board observer seat on your company, meaning Rachel, as the COO, and the rest of the company are now having to provide quarterly, annual, whatever it might be, meetings and reports to a board that is comprised of probably people who are experts in the given field and the technology in the area, but then also who are investors. And to that point that she's making with having that pressure to grow and expand, that is something that you have to deal with on a real basis that is not always going to be in the best interest of ensuring your company is stable.
Yeah, and every time you raise, you become more and more diluted, to Eric's point. So there you could own very little of your company and then lose control. So there are companies out there, like In-N-Out Burger would be an example, who they did not take venture capital. They grew very slow, very disciplined. They stayed true to their values. And sure, they weren't on the same trajectory as a McDonald's or a Burger King, but they didn't care. They cared about disciplined growth. They cared about their people. They cared about their values, and they never raised venture, and they grew slow. And now that family has way more ownership of the business than, and you know the story with McDonald's, so how that turned out for them.
Right.
So I think it's given us, and I think venture can be a really sexy topic when you're starting to think about starting a company and general startup land. And it took me even a while to realize that there were alternative routes. And if someone is willing, like an angel investor is willing to give you money because they believe in you, and they don't care if it takes you 5 years, and they see your vision and they believe in you, I would rather take that money all day than go a venture route. But I only tell you that to just know that there are other paths to fundraising than what might be the loudest path that you're going to
It's great
hear
advice
about.
that not all money is created equal. Understand that going into it. You've got some other pieces of advice I want to make sure that they hear. Sid, if you don't mind kicking forward, do 2 more slides, 1 more. Thank you. You had mentioned this yesterday. This is critical for y'all to understand. Going back to your corporate time, we talked about building a network. We talked with Sandeep and Mitch about the notion of like tapping into who's next to you with potential co-founders and the like. And then when you went to Target and you went to Meyer, you talked about the difference to me yesterday about how that felt with tapping connections as opposed to how it is with startup life. Break that down.
Yeah, so I think in corporate America, you are only networking within that organization, and it's really only about who do I need to know so that I can move up in my career, or who will be somebody in my corner. And I think the first thing that I learned from Sadok when I started getting involved in the startup community is the idea is not what they can do for you, but like how can you give first. So first rule of startup land for me is give first. And if I meet someone in the community, and of course, like now I'm not just in that organization, I'm in the greater Grand Rapids area, I'm in the startup community throughout Michigan. If I meet someone immediately, I want to learn about your business because maybe I know someone in the back of my brain that I could introduce you to that would add value to your company. So the idea of building your community, like your network, yes, but it's almost more about building your community and like really getting involved in where you're living and who, if you move to a new city, like get out there to meet people and to get involved on a more grassroots level so that your community and your network isn't just tied to your place of work. And how can you truly like give and help other people so that eventually, hopefully, that goodwill comes back to you and people want to work with people that they like and that help them.
And part of that it's a shared experience. She, as a founder, is going through the same pain and trials and tribulations as other founders, even if they have nothing to do with the same industry. That shared bond creates trust and empathy-based relationships as opposed to transactional relationships. Those are valuable long-term. And so as part of what that shared experience is that you're going through, you're having to be nimble every single day. You don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah?
You have to be ready to pivot, to be nimble, to know that every day is not going to look the same, and there's going to be roadblocks. And I think it's building this resiliency and building a tough skin that not everyone's going to like your idea, not every day is going to go smoothly. There's going to be roadblocks, but it's all part of the journey, and every single time something gets in your way, like it's just a learning, and you evolve, and you get smarter and better, and you move on from there. But yeah. Nimble.
And learning on and moving on from there, I want to underscore that point again about raising money and not all money being created equal. When you signed up for this class and you came in here, I would have to imagine many of you would have associated venture capital and startups as being completely unable to be disconnected and being joined at the hip. The 3 guests who you have heard from did not take venture capital money. They maintained ownership of their company as it grew, as it expanded. I'm not saying that venture capital is bad. I'm saying that's one pathway for how to fuel the operation that you're trying to build. So we had some student questions that came in. We've got a second or two. I want to make sure that we hit on those. I appreciate y'all putting those in. Sasha Lee, are you out there? Hey, there you go, Sasha. We're going to run a microphone up to you. Appreciate you. You had a question about the process of starting and the like.
I submitted my question a day ago or two, but I think it was about what were your failures or successes, or what advice would you give as someone who's like newly starting up their company?
I think knowing that you're probably going to fail at some point, but being able to be okay in the failure and like letting it seep in and being like, okay, once I get past that initial shock of like, wow, that really didn't go well, Now, what did I learn, and what can I build back to be better next time? I think like catch. Like I literally told everybody this is what I was doing, and immediately failed. And it's like it's okay. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to move on. Like you wouldn't be getting better as a company, as a leader, as a person if you didn't try new things, if you didn't evolve, if you didn't tweak it along the way. And just knowing that everyone's kind of in that same boat, that we're all figuring it out. We're all learning. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fail. But like, be comfortable existing in the failure for a time and then learning.
And if I can presume, that's such a great question. One of the things you have to become comfortable with is the rapid changes that you don't have the ability to control and the failures that happen around you. So when we were talking yesterday and prepping for this, we got on a call. I was like, how's your day going? You're like, oh my God, what a day I've had. Tell them what happened.
Yeah, our employee number one left our company. She gave us notice that she got an offer to work for an emergency clinic that's going to pay her a lot more money. And when I first found out about it, I was devastated. I cried. You know, it sucks. It sucks to lose your people. But I think after I got over the shock, and I was like, all right, I knew, I was like, I would be doing her a disservice if we didn't empower her to have to develop in her career, to know her worth, and to say, I love you guys, I love what you're doing, but I just got an offer to bump my salary however much, and I gotta take it. And I'm like, good for you, you know. Like I'm happy for her, and it sucks for us because now I have to take on all of that workload and then find someone that's gonna fill those shoes. But then I looked at it and I said, hey, maybe I'll find someone who can do this better, or you know, or we can find someone who has a skill set that she didn't have, and it'll be good for the company long term.
Which that's a muscle you're building each time you go through that trial, tribulation, that failure. You're learning how to adapt to it. You're learning how to overcome it. You're learning how to move on from it. So such a great example to otherwise focus in on today. Thank you for sharing Vetr Health with everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yes, thanks
Go
for
Blue.
having me.